back in black. Da-da-da.
Yes.
Da-da-da.
Copyright strike.
Canceled.
We are back with black. See it? Welcome, everybody, to the third installment of our color series here on the MTG Thoughtcast. Where we're talking about underrated and underplayed cards in the color black, as we're going in Wooburg order, that you should be playing more of in your commander decks. I'm Joseph, one of your hosts here at the MTG Thoughtcast, and as always, across the screen or somewhere across your ears is my sweet, sweet brother with the sweet, sweet voice, John Kendall. John, how you doing today, man?
I'm on top of the command tower, tapping it for black.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And we're doing plenty of that today. Before we get into all of the sweet goodness of the episode today, if you want to support the channel and see more of these color series videos, you can hit the likes, comments, subscribes, all of the things down below. The buttons help the robots put our videos in your feed more often. If you want to be a true homie, the homie of the year perhaps, you can click our Discord link down below as well, where you can jump in all of the discussion about today's episode, previous episodes, and future episodes. Also playing commander games, brewing decks. It's a great time. You can jump in our Discord. It is linked down below, totally free. We're there all the time. For our Spotify listeners who are just absorbing our voices through your ear canals, thank you for listening. You can leave us a 5-star review if you want to support the channel. Those help a ton. Okay,
directly
today,
to the brainstem.
Directly, it actually is like the least amount of sensory overload to listen to us on Spotify. You don't have to see these mugs. You don't have to see the cards putting up on the screen. You just get direct inject of our voices talking about Commander to the brain.
Let us be your magic serotonin.
Absolutely. I use Spotify podcasts to fall asleep. That's what I do. I pop them on and then I wake up to something crazy, usually because it just auto plays into whatever. And my wife and I share a Spotify account, so it'll just somewhere in the algorithm.
I understand.
So if that's one of you, sleep tight. So like I said, we are talking about some underrated cards that you should be playing in your decks that are of the color black. Not necessarily mono black, but just black cards that you should be playing more often. We've compiled our lists. We're ready to discuss them. John, why don't you take us away with your first pick for underrated black card?
Yeah, let's get right into it. But I suppose the question to you firstly as well, I don't know, we haven't really gone over this in any of the previous colors, but I guess to answer you the question, how do you feel about the color black? Like, is it your preferred?
I play a ton of black. I play it a lot. I think that black to me is one of the more versatile colors because you get access to really good card draw. You get access to really strong creatures. And typically these all come at a downside to you, but
usually like paying life or something like that.
The philosophy of the color black in Magic is greatness at any cost. Mm-hmm. So who cares about my life total and who cares about this dinky little creature that I have sitting around? I'm going to be doing really, really powerful things. So I would rank this maybe it's somewhere in the top two, and it might not be two for me. Yeah. I think blue and black are my two strongest colors. I think green is probably my favorite color to play, but I would say that black is very, very strong and is up there at the top. There's just very little things that you can't do in black except for maybe destroy enchantments. And even then, that's kind of...
They're pushing that. They're pushing that a bit. Yeah, totally.
I guess you don't get artifact removal in black.
Not particularly. No,
but you get permanent removal. Mm-hmm. And you get player removal. So who cares?
Exsanguinate, you die.
100%. Yeah. I get it. I'm playing a ton of black these days.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. Yeah, it has definitely its strengths in giving you what I would describe as like the most like cost-effective versions of pieces of game interaction or things that you can do at the cost of some kind of like downside to you. Like you had said, mostly card draw that costs you life. But then people tend to forget that black is actually also the central color for life gain. It's paired off nowadays with white, but black has kind of always been the iconic original of like, are you looking to flux your life total up and down using it as a means to play your stuff?
Oh, good.
Black life gain is a very prominent feature of the color. And then obviously the very, very standard one that a lot of people think of when it comes to playing black, the premium amount of removal and the premium cards for reanimator.
100%.
Like,
that's what I'm saying is you just kind of get access to everything. You can have 6 different black decks or decks that have black in them, and none of them would be doing the same thing. If that's that's typically kind of what I would do with it, because I have three or four different black decks in my bag. And none of them play black in the same way. So it's definitely one of my favorites for versatility.
So let me start with one of mine. We were just talking about cards that offer you card draw at the cost of some life. Let me tell you about the favorite of mine that I play. And obviously, like, most of us will play like the substandard stuff. You know, I imagine you've got like Night's Whispers and Sign in Blood and most of your other decks that have black that you're looking to draw cards. Let me tell you about a particular favorite that I play inside of my Esper shell. This is a card draw spell called Stinging Study.
I've actually never heard of this.
Originally from Commander 2021. I believe this was the Strixhaven cycle of 5, if my math is correct on that. But this is 4 and a black for a instant. You draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone.
That's awesome. That's so sick.
It's amazing. So how frequently nowadays, no matter what color you're playing, how often is it that some of the most premier commanders that you end up seeing played, like obviously more aggressive style commanders are probably going to be playing a commander and cards that are maybe at a lower mana value, talking like maybe like 3 or less or whatever. But like generally speaking, how many good commanders do you see nowadays that are at about a 4 and higher?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, that's sort of the template. And even then, like, I've really enjoyed playing 6+ mana commanders lately. Like, they do cool things in that range. I would say 4 is the average for commanders, with the cheaper
6.
ones being, with the cheaper commanders being in the more powerful brackets. But like, as you go back further, you can get into some really interesting stuff. So like, if you're playing, a 5 or a 6 mana commander, this is just at instant speed as well. Being able to just draw a ton and lose some life, it's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, so
this is unfortunately a $12 card.
Oh, it is? Oh,
yeah.
Well, look at that. I didn't realize. I picked this up bulk many, many years ago. I didn't realize it had shot up in price so much. But if this is something you can afford, I really like this a lot. My personal copy, I play this in Oloro, Ageless Ascetic, and Oloro is a 6 mana commander who naturally gains life over the course of the game as well. Yeah, so this making you lose life equal to the amount of cards that you draw is mitigated on his part as well. But I even think if you're playing a commander that can't bounce back off that life, right? Like, at about 4, especially if you've got this 1-to-1, if you're playing a 5-drop commander and you cast this for 5, draw 5, lose 5, like that's on rate as you can get, right? Like you're up to the levels of like Necropotence there, where you're paying like a life for a card.
1 life for a card is the sweet spot. That's where it becomes very, very powerful. And yeah, let alone if you're playing anything like, God forbid, if you have Shield or the Apocalypse in your deck.
Shield or the Apocalypse. I was actually about to mention Quasar, Augur of Agonies. Kind of same thing. Rewards you for drawing cards.
Completely negates that life loss. You're all of a sudden just going to refill your hand for a very, very low cost. Because it's instant speed, it's a low cost. I would say if this was a sorcery, I would say we're maybe not on the same page about it, but at instant speed, that's awesome.
Yeah, this definitely has its value because, especially, like I said, like a deck that I play as well, it plays a lot of off-turn interaction that you can hold this up, and if something across the table during the off-turn needs answered, you haven't wasted your turn drawing cards and saying pass. you can wait until the whole cycle has come back around to you, and then, oh, nobody played anything worth blowing up. Why don't I just get a quick refill? It's for the same reason it makes cards like Sphinx's Revelation incredibly strong, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
You hold up stuff like that for during the rotation that you need to make sure everything stays under control. And if it is all under control, get yourself refilled and fresh, ready to go for the next rotation.
I love it,
Big
man.
fan of it. Was not aware of that price cost. I probably wouldn't have brought this up if I realized it was that. But if this is something that you can reasonably pick up, if you're playing a higher mana value commander, I'd say give this a shot. This might be
I would
one
say,
of the
like, price doesn't necessarily mean whether it's over or underplayed. This is just a supply issue. Like, this hasn't been reprinted ever. That was just a one-time reprint. Or a one-time print, has never been reprinted. So there's just not enough of a supply to keep up with the demand. Price goes up. Economics. Let's talk about something a little cheaper, both monetarily and mana value-wise, that I play a lot of as a card draw engine in my black decks. This is Tyrions Journal from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So this is a 2-mana artifact. It's a legendary artifact, mind you. And you just pay... You tap it, sacrifice another artifact or creature, and draw a card. You can activate only as a sorcery. And then for 2 mana, you can tap it, discard your hand, and transform it into the Tomb of Aclazotz, which is a legendary land cave that can either tap for a black, or you can tap it and you get to cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and it's a vampire in addition to its other types. So I would say I pretty rarely flip it over. It really is here to just sit and sort of act as a Phyrexian Arena sort of card, where like once a turn, like I said, in black, I have a lot of creatures that I'm just trying to get rid of. Zombie tokens, thrall tokens, like whatever you have. Not to mention treasures, clues, food, all of these things that exist in Black's color pie that are artifacts that you can just sacrifice. So at base value, you can tap it to sacrifice a clue and draw a card. So reducing
what you want to do with the clues anyway, right?
Yeah, and reduce that mana cost by 2. Like you pay 2 for the Tyrions Journal, and then every clue or food or whatever that you're making, you can just throw one of them away for a card. Let alone if you have creatures that you want to sacrifice. So like I play this in my Slimefoot and Squee deck as a way to sacrifice Slimefoot and Squee, draw a card, and put it in the graveyard where it wants to be. So it's one of these, like, I feel like I talk about glue pieces a lot. Like it's not an entirely exciting card, but the more that you just have it sitting on the battlefield, it just gives you so many options of things to get rid of, things to do. It does suck that you can only do it as a sorcery. I will admit that. You can't use this as like, oh, someone's targeting my commander, I'm just going to blow it up and draw a card. There's other ways to do that. You play your village rights or whatever, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. The more that I've played Tyrions Journal, the more that I've really fallen in love with it. It really does a ton of work in my Togo Kesket, quote unquote, landfall deck. To where I can just throw a rock away for a card. This is tap, sacrifice a rock, draw a card, which is really good. That sort of turns into landfall, draw a card in that deck. So I'm really, really stoked on Tyrions Journal. It's only $1, and it is severely underplayed. If you look it up on the old EDH rec, play more Tyrions Journal. It's relatively new, which is why I think people don't play it a ton. Like it came out within the last year, so it's still being tested for a lot of people, but I've just found myself throwing it in quite a lot.
I like to, you were kind of disregarding like the second half of what this card even does. The discarding transforms, becomes the reanimator land on the backside. I like that second, like you said that the card draw part is locked to sorceries B, but the transform part is not.
Definitely.
So like if it goes around and you find yourself like empty-handed, nothing going on, and you like if you don't have tons of cards to discard, you transform, because one of the key things with this is if you transform this during your main phase, it's going to remain tapped as it's finished transforming. So if you can discard your hand, transform it on the end step of somebody else, and then it goes to you, this untaps ready to go. Now you've got this land that allows you to start casting creatures from your graveyard the turn. On the turn after you finish it, of which can be creatures that you discard to its own cost.
Yes, that's a really good enabler for things like Reanimator. When you just have these like really big creatures in your hand that you want in your graveyard anyway, you're kind of like the discard your hand is a moot point when you're throwing things in the graveyard that you're either going to be playing like animate deads on and get them back, or reanimates or whatever, getting them back, let alone the fact that it enables itself, because like you said, you can just tap it to be able to cast those cards out of your graveyard anyway. So again, mitigating the downside of discarding your hand because your graveyard becomes your hand. This one of my favorite features that Black gets access to is like, oh, my graveyard is sort of hand too. Like I get sort of access to a lot of those things. I find myself when I'm playing a Black deck, building a Black deck, trying to utilize the graveyard as often as possible, because if we're talking about underplayed mechanics, graveyard hate is severely underplayed because like man, graveyard hate is such an interesting like part of deck building.
Like how much of it do you build into your deck not knowing what you're going to play against? You know what I mean?
I'm not throwing a Tormod's Crypt in every deck just in case I come across a graveyard deck. I'm playing like Rest in Peace in the War Doctor deck because it ends up being a win condition that also happens to be graveyard hate. So I'm always looking for like some of those extra, like, oh, this happens to be graveyard hate in addition to doing something else in my deck. So if you're coming across a lot more people like me who aren't just throwing in Tormod's Crypts, your graveyard is sort of your second hand in Black.
Speaking of our reanimator pieces of getting our creatures into the graveyard, and we've mentioned just a few of the key prominent ones here, can I tell you about my all-time favorite one in utilizing it as a reanimator and also just capitalizing the fact of like your graveyard can be a spare hand ready to go? Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite reanimator piece of all time, Blood for Bones.
Yes, sir. You know I was going to talk about this as well. But take it away, dude.
Mine, 100%. Yep. You
take it away.
Blood for Bones, my friends, is 3 and a black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then return another creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
This is tricky.
Immediately out the gate, the first thing I have to talk about is what is the importance of this over Victimize? And I do understand Victimize is a very strong and powerful card. I understand that. Turning one creature into 2 for essentially just the cost of sacrificing 1 or sacrificing a token or whatever, that is a great card. Don't mishear me. Blood for Bones has very, very fun, practical other use behind it as well. Notice the wording on this here. It says at additional cost to cast the spell, you sacrifice a creature, period. It doesn't continue on from there. The remainder of the text continues on as such. You return a creature, not a target creature.
No targets, baby.
Creature. And then you return another creature, not a target creature. What this means is that as compared to Victimize, Blood for Bones sacrifice that costs to play this here, the creature that you throw under the bus to this can be one of the 2 that's included as part of the resolution of the spell. So let's say, for an example, you've got sat on your battlefield a Muldrifter, our ideal friend from the previous episode that we talked about here. Blood for Bones, go ahead and eat your Muldrifter. You now got the option that if you have nothing else kicking around in your graveyard that you want to target, the Muldrifter can be part of one of these 2 resolutions of the spell. It can either be the card that directly comes back into play from the first half of the text, or it could be the card that is returned to your hand as part of the second half of the text. And this obviously is applicable to anything that you would sacrifice into this card as well. Or it can be neither of them. If you've got 2 other relevant creatures in your graveyard, you can still do the same thing with this, like Victimize, where you throw a token into this and get 2 real cards, one of them back into play and the other one back to your hand. Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. It's for lack of a better way to describe this, Blood for Bones is a 2-for-1 combo piece that acts as a reanimator and a blink spell, potentially, because you can reanimate the thing you sacrifice.
Dude, I have seen you wreak some absolute havoc with this in Eternal Witness.
Oh, yes. My favorite pairing to go with this is if one of the cards, like I guess especially the one you bring back to your hand, if you end up being a recursion creature like Eternal Witness or Timeless Witness or Archaeomancer, any of those that can get Blood for Bones back into your hand. And then you've also just incidentally reanimated something else in the meantime, right? Like my copy of this, my prominent one, it lives in Yarok the Desecrated. So like we're all about getting things in and out and blinked and back to hand and doubling up the triggers or whatever.
It's disgusting.
It's stellar. I love this.
That's cool, Stin.
Yeah. It's also just an amazing piece of artwork. Is one of my favorites in the game. I'm a very big sucker for Seb McKinnon artwork here. So like a very cool blink reanimator, like combination style of things that fluxes into a variety of different shells if you whatever you need it to. Again, play your victimize still if you absolutely want to. But
yeah, I think you want both of these.
If you're,
they feel different to me. I see the comparison obviously because they both require you to sacrifice a creature. They both involve two different creatures, but they really are two functionally different cards.
Yeah, exactly. Victimize is just hard reanimation, and Blood for Bones can be this flex spot of like I'm taking.
Go ahead.
Just I'm taking a thing from the battlefield, putting into the graveyard, bringing it back, bringing another thing back. Like, do we even need to mention Sir Conrad here? Like, do you know how stupid this is with Sir? You get a card
like
leaving
three or four life.
Yeah, card leaves your battlefield. Two of them leave the graveyard.
Yikes, dude. Oh, not to mention the fact that like, if you're playing Blood for Bones, you're playing some enablers that will fill your graveyard. So like you could just you get your Sir Conrad back with this. Like it's so one of my favorite things about playing black decks is they're so sticky. Like you just without graveyard hate, things never are really gone. Like what's gone is never actually dead. It's like Emperor Palpatine. Like it's got to die on screen, you know?
Somehow the Muldrifter returned.
Yes. I have like a piggyback pick off of this. That's sort of in a similar vein. But I've been playing a ton of Lich Knight's Conquest as well. So sort of a similar vein. It's like a very budget. Oh God, what's the big one that reanimates all creatures?
Rise of the Dark
Realms. It's like I consider this like a budget Rise of the Dark Realms, where it's Lich Knight's Conquest is 4 and a black for a sorcery. You sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, and or tokens, and return that many creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So again, you're obviously playing this in some shell where you can sacrifice a ton of things. Again, black just makes a ton of tokens. Like you've got your the fairy one,
Bitter Blossom.
You got your Bitter Blossom. You've got Black Market connections. You've got Ophiomancer. You've got all these things that make, not to mention like so many things make zombie tokens in black. So I would be playing this in a deck that has permanents and tokens. And that's sort of its baseline value is just 5 mana, sacrifice a ton of tokens and get all of your creatures back from your graveyard. What I think is really sick that people don't realize about this is similar to Blood for Bones, this doesn't target the creatures in your graveyard. So if you're playing this in an artifact creature deck or in an enchantment creature deck, you can just blink all of those things that you sacrificed to the graveyard and get them all right back. So this is like a mass blink spell in artifact enchantment creatures decks, let alone having all of this value of just bargaining your tokens away to just reanimate a ton of stuff. So I play this card a ton.
It's like on the same trickery that you can do with Living Death, where like you throw your board into the graveyard and then cast something like this, and all of those things are immediately going to come back. This just lets you skip the step of needing to have like a sacrifice outlet on your board to throw everything into the graveyard. Like you want to have all your creatures enter and exit the graveyard all at the same time without needing a sack outlet. You can do this.
Yes, it's so sick. People don't see it coming. You will have to explain the rules and how the stack works and targeting and not targeting and the whole thing. But similar, like you said, to Living Death, better than Living Death is you don't have to worry about what's in your opponent's graveyards for something like this. This is completely self-contained to your board. This is an asymmetric effect where you're just going, I'm going to throw all of my things in the graveyard. I'm going to get them all right back. I have a weird. I've talked about my Wilson deck before. So the black half of the Wilson deck is Wilson, Agent of the Iron Throne, which is artifacts and creatures coming in and out of the graveyard. And Lich Knight's Conquest is awesome in there because there's so many artifact creatures that this just becomes like everything dies, everything comes back. I get a ton of Agent of the Iron Throne triggers. I get all of those ETBs again. It's just value heavy. I love Lich Knight's Conquest.
It's very cool, very cool. You had mentioned previously that one of the standout things about playing black is that, and we have just now gone back and forth on 2 very fun reanimator style pieces. Black is a terribly sticky style of commander deck. Things just will not go away long term, especially if somebody is playing black. But what if you're the person playing black and you absolutely want to make sure something does go away for as long as you possibly can?
Tell me.
Tell you about it? All right. This card has been memed kind of into oblivion for a while now, but now it has kind of made its way back into circulation, but people just kind of don't really realize it and just don't quite understand the potential of something like this. Joseph, have you been made aware that black has an oblivion ring? And even better than an oblivion ring.
I am aware of it.
You're aware of it.
Yeah, tell me about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's dive into Uboliet just a bit, because you may not have even known that this was something that black had the possibility to do. And you'd be correct, because this kind of card style has never been done again as in a black card since, to be honest. Now, older printings of this card are very, very convoluted and wordy, and they have a real big mess onto them. So when this card was first reprinted in Double Masters, it had basically a type line update to give it a more smooth to the extent of what this kind of ability does. Uboliet is 1 and double black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, target creature phases out until Uboliet leaves the battlefield. Tap that creature as it phases in this way. So for a little bit now, phasing has kind of come back as sort of this like one-off cameo style of mechanic, and it's getting better knowledge or better headspace in the player base now on how phasing works. But the short of it is like, if something of yours has been phased out, anything currently on it or attached to it, plus the card itself, it does not leave your battlefield or leave their battlefield, but it's treated as though it does not exist. And then typically those cards phase back in as you untap next. A card like Uboliet stops the phasing from happening at all. So even if the Uboliet phase, like if this is removed when it's like not your turn, that permanent that was originally phased out with it, it'll become tapped as it phases back in. So you still basically have a full rotation of this being down in play. But man, like, talk about getting hit on somebody's thing in black when they just expect you to be playing the spot removal or the mass board wipe stuff that black is known for.
Yeah, well, I love that you mentioned that it's like Oblivion Ring, but is slightly better than Oblivion Ring, because what I use Uboliet for is commander removal, where I never want to waste a piece of removal on a commander because they're just going to recast it again. Uboliet doesn't give them the chance to, because it doesn't actually leave the battlefield. It just phases out. So it's treated like it doesn't exist, meaning their commander isn't on the battlefield and also isn't in their command zone to get to recast it. So I see this as a very similar piece to like Imprisoned in the Moon, Song of the Dryads, things like that. That's like, if one of the players at the table has a commander that absolutely has to be down for their deck to work, you just Uboliet that thing and they are not a problem anymore. Now, something that I think that you should have talked about that you didn't is the fact that phasing gets auras and equipment that are also attached to that permanent. So anything that's attached... Yeah,
I did say that. In the describing of kind of like how phasing works, that anything that is currently on that creature or attached to it phases out with it.
Yeah, this card is an FU to Boros equipment decks, where like they play their commander, they attach all their equipment to it, and you're just like, Uboliet, sorry, your board does not exist anymore. You can't move those equipment around. You can't, like, there's just nothing that they can do anymore. So you can time out an Uboliet against an equipment player really, really well. I like that, man.
Yeah, and then just like, you know, like this is a permanent that obviously comes in and does. So like think of all of the black and X style cards, like especially maybe with like blue that you can make like tokens and copies and clones and things like that. Like what a stupid enchantment to make clones of, right? Like
God.
Every turn pop down an Uboliet and just phase out away basically any problematic thing that person is never going to have access to for quite a long while unless they've got enchantment removal.
Yeah.
It's very,
Which,
very
again,
cool.
Slim.
Yeah, slim pickings. But if you are in, especially like this is a prominent piece to start thinking about if you are in a color, like say mono black or a color pair that has a hard time removing, especially larger creatures or commanders. I'd say like black and blue and maybe black and maybe green. Like if you're like Golgari or something like that. Like if you're any of those kinds of colors that don't have access to like banishing light and such, try Uboliet.
I was gonna say, are you playing this in black-white decks?
I mean, maybe if you're a black-white heavy focus on enchantments, you probably could, I imagine.
Yeah, it is a really good enchantment. Yeah, super, super good. I like that one a lot. I'll follow that up with a removal pick as well. Obviously, this doesn't do the same thing that Uboliet does whatsoever, but it's a removal piece that I think more people should be considering. Are you aware of like cards like Hex?
I am, yes.
I'm not talking about Hex, because I don't like Hex. It's too simple, it's too weird. So I think more people should be playing Finale of Eternity. This is from War of the Spark. It's X black for a sorcery. Destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. If X is 10 or more, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So baseline for this is like, let's say you're throwing 3 mana into that X. You get 3 creatures off the board that have toughness 3 or less. So it's a little weird. It's a little targeted. At 4 mana, it becomes 6. Sorry, if at 4 mana into the X, it becomes 6 mana to remove 3 things with toughness 4 or less. And I like that. I think that's totally fine. That's roughly 2 mana a piece to snag like 3 things with 4 toughness or less. Pretty happy with that. And then later in the game, if you can pump 12 mana into this and make it 10 black, you get to destroy 3 things of your choice. Anything. This becomes destroy 3 target creatures. If there's things with more than 10 toughness on the board, sorry. But you also just reanimate every creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Just another one of those, like, people won't see this coming. That's a huge blow. Oh my God, that's a huge blow. So, like, what's the 3 worst things on the board? Get rid of them, and I get all of my stuff back from the graveyard? No restrictions. Just reanimate everything. If you can't tell, I like reanimating things. This is one of my favorite ways to play the game is Reanimator. And when you just have these removal pieces that also happen to act like Rise of the Dark Realms, geez, it's so good. This is also like a $2 card that roughly nobody is playing. So it was a mythic from War of the Spark. So it's also cool. I love playing mythics in my decks. I get to see that little orange and get the little serotonin from playing mythics. The finale cycle is very cool. Obviously, Finale of Green is the better one. Yeah, really cool cards that all scale as the game goes on. So like we talk about flexibility all the time. This is an incredibly flexible piece. Obviously, it's sorcery speed. Don't be afraid of sorceries. Just don't run too many of them, you know? If this is one of your few sorceries in the deck that's like, I have to play this on my turn and snipe a few things, removal's obviously better as an instant because then you get more options, you get more access to things, you get to surprise people on an off turn. But like having a powerful effect like this, I'm fine playing a sorcery as it gets rid of 3 target creatures. And it sort of fills a bit of a board wipe spot for me where, you know, typically like when there's 3 problem creatures on the board, that's when I'm looking to start board wiping. Or I could just take care of those 3 creatures with 1 card. Like this is a 3-for-1 on its own and then becomes a game ender at 10 or more. So it's a really, really good card that I think I'd like to see people play more often in decks that can cast it for 10, obviously.
I'm imagining a scenario where you've got yourself a built-up board of some regular old creatures, and you start pumping them into Ashnod's Altar to get up to the big X that you need.
Sack your board. Sack 5 creatures into that.
5 creatures, hit the X10 on this, you blow up the 3 most important things on the board, and then all those things you just right back down into play. I like that.
Right back.
It's very, very cool. But I know one of the other favorite things that you enjoy, Joseph, and that's a quick mini game. And
what are we playing? I love Mario Party.
Who likes playing guessing games? You're in? All right. Let's talk
hostile negotiation?
It's hostile negotiations.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, we love hostile negotiations. To play you think you know what's under here? You only think you know power. Slap that on the t-shirt.
Right.
Hostile negotiations, 3 and a black for an instant. Exile the top 3 cards of your library in a face-down pile. Then exile the top 3 cards of your library into another face-down pile. Look at the cards in each pile. Then turn a pile of your choice face up. An opponent chooses one of those piles. You put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard, and you lose 3 life.
Yeah, so, dude. Fire.
Yeah, like we were talking about, this is another one of these kinds of cards that like it dings you for drawing cards. But man, the blind guessing game that you get to do on somebody. So it's a big block of text, but essentially how this works is that in 2 groups of 3, the top 6 of your library is separated into 2 3-card piles. Of your choice, you get to turn one of them face up, and your opponent still has to pick one of the 2 piles. They obviously get to see what's in the one pile. They don't get to see what's in the other pile, but you know what's in the other pile. So it becomes a back and forth mind game of which of the 2 piles do you think your opponent thinks you think is going to them think is better.
Yes,
right.
It becomes like the scene from Princess Bride with the wines. But you couldn't possibly put the poison wine in front of me because you'd know that I would think that.
Precisely. It's exactly that. It's exactly like, do you reveal to them a big dumb bomb in your face up pile, but then like why then they start thinking to themselves, well, why would they flip a card like that face up and not show me what's in the other pile? And this can also be completely accounted for by the way that whatever pile you don't pick, it goes to your graveyard, so you could also still just mind game them in that regard.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Let me show you this thing that I probably want in my hand, or I could do the face down pile that is okay either in my hand or in my graveyard. But are you going to purposely put the face up thing in my graveyard knowing what's there? But if you put it in my hand, then the unknown goes to, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It just, mine. Instant speed as well, by the way. Do this in response to somebody doing anything or going to the end of your turn. Like, it's
this
so
is well
fun.
worth holding up. I'm curious. Let's take a quick pause and talk strategy on this, because I have some theories on strategy for these like hidden card piles. I would love to hear, like, you're looking at your 6. What's your first thoughts going into how do I organize these piles?
That obviously kind of firstly comes down to what ends up being in the pile. You know what I mean? Like, if you get super unlucky and it's like 5 lands and a spell, then you're kind of, SLL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like a mix, because here's the important thing with this card is that you do not get to rearrange the piles. So whatever's in the first pile of 3 and the second pile of 3.
Right.
Yeah. It's not factor fiction. You don't get to like adjust the piles as need be. So that's a big contributor when going to play a card like this, is you do kind of have to get a little lucky with what ends up in each pile of 3. But I think it just really depends. So like here's where I sit with this kind of card. This plays in my Obzon Princess and the Frog landfall deck. So for me, it is landfall. That one is truly landfall. It is. So for me, it actually does not, like the scene I was describing about, it does not matter which pile is picked for the opponent. If, say, the face down pile just happens to be a 3 pile of land, I've got tons of pieces in that deck that want lands in my graveyard anyway.
Yeah.
Or if the lands go to my hand, then that's more landfall fodder for my deck to do. So that's why I play it in a deck like that, is you get to have the benefit of it does not matter to your opponent which one it is, but especially if they let you have the face down pile, they're just going to have no idea what you ended up drawing.
Yeah.
And that's really fun.
I think what this card boils down to me is there's a pile that's going to be better for you. There always is going to be one of the 2 piles that's more beneficial for you to have in your hand. I find myself putting that pile face up because like you said, it's the mind game, and I'm obviously showing all of my cards for anybody who ever plays against me and I cast this, but like I put the better cards face up so that they go like, oh my god, that face down pile has to be insane, and they just let me draw the cards I want to draw as I flip 3 lands into the graveyard.
Precisely. Yep.
Makes me feel mentally superior.
I do like it. This is probably one of my, like, we talked about Stinging Study earlier this episode as well, but like Hostile Negotiations has definitely got to be one of my second favorite as far as black card draw. That is also just a side benefit with this card as well, by the way. This is not card draw. So if you are being if you are being taxed against somebody with like Smothering Tithe or a Shieldred or whatever, like you get these cards in your hand without drawing them per se. So that's very cool.
All right, well, we have time for like one more each, and I think something we haven't talked a ton about is like good creatures to reanimate, or if you're playing big mana black, good creatures that can be cast. So let me close this out with, God, I have 2 picks. I'm trying to pick between them. All right, we're going to talk about crab.
Describe them to me and let me.
We're going to talk about Crabomination, okay?
Crabomination, yes.
That's one of my favorite big black creatures. It's 6 mana, 4 black for a crab demon. It's a 5/5, and it has Emerge from Artifact, which is you can cast it by sacrificing an artifact and paying the Emerge cost reduced by the artifact's mana value, and that's 5 black. So you could sacrifice a Paradox Engine if you're playing that illegally, and you could just pay a single black for this. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles the top card of their library, a card at random from their graveyard, and a card at random from their hand, and you get to cast one of those from among those cards exiled without paying its mana cost. So this is just like a big dumb thing, and you know I love, if I'm going to reanimate a creature once, I'm going to want to reanimate it 10 times throughout the game, or if I'm going to blink a creature once, I'm going to want to blink it 10 times. So this is just an incredibly strong ETB on like a big body with at least one relevant creature type. I wouldn't say that crab is very relevant, but demons are very relevant. So big old 5/5 that's going to get you a free spell and just psychologically torment your opponents.
Yeah, I don't know how crazy useful the Emerge from Artifact is going to end up being, but maybe you just have a random 3-drop artifact that isn't helping you anymore, 100%. Right? Like, totally I'm thinking like, what's like,
let's get rid of Solemn Simulacrum.
Yeah, that's
Draw
a good
your
one.
Card off of it, and then this becomes 1 black.
I was thinking the Treasure Keeper, that like 3
also
mana that kind of cascades.
Cascade 3, yeah.
The artifacts that want to be in your graveyard. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I like that. And then as you had described as well, yeah, what a stupid blink target, right? Ripping card at random. That is just the killer part on this here as well, man. Because like it doesn't matter what your opponent is holding. If they have to send something off at random, man, the amount of times that's just going to, for lack of a better term, randomly just hose what they're looking to do. Yep. Outstanding.
Yeah, they don't get to pick their worst card in hand for you to get. You get whatever. I mean, if they've got 1 card in hand and you're just like, snipe that and the top card of your library and a card from your graveyard, and one of those is going to be good, you know?
And I guess even if it isn't, that's 3 cards headed off into exile that if you care about your opponents having cards in exile, there you go. That's real sick.
It's a little insane to me that this isn't an Eldrazi, with how much it cares about like Emerge was an Eldrazi ability. It's crab horror, or it's a crab demon. I'm sorry, it's not a horror. I just feel like it could have been crab Eldrazi, and that would have been sick. Because this was from a Modern Horizons. This is from Modern Horizons 3. Those can span across any plane, any universe. So
Yeah.
I'm just a big, like, I love H.P. Lovecraft.
I think
and this feels Cthulhu-y.
I think this is supposed to be on Zendikar. It kind of looks like its shell is sort of like a busted open Hedron.
Could have been an Eldrazi.
It could have been, but it's a crab demon, so why not?
Crab demon.
Hey,
right, John.
we've got demon krakens with Gyruda, so why not demon crabs, right?
Yeah, demon sea creatures is a specialty of mine.
Take me away
with your last.
Have you seen pictures of sea monsters from like way at the bottom of the ocean, dude? Like those things are terrifying.
Not even the bottom of the ocean. Have you ever seen the bottom of a horseshoe crab? Pull that up real quick. Just pull up the picture of a bottom of a horseshoe crab, and that is horrific.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of, and let's close us out here with, of course, John's got to have sitting in the wings here probably the most hear me out card that we're playing in here. All right, what if I told you about a big dumb flying trample idiot friend that gives all your opponents gifts? Okay.
Sounds like Bumbleflower.
But it's not Bumbleflower. Hear me out. This is Blood Vial Purveyor. 2 and double black for a 5/6 vampire with flying and trample. When an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. And when Blood Vial Purveyor attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each blood token defending player controls.
Yo, this is sick.
All right, so you got to follow me on this here, because like the baseline that you read on a card like this is like, oh, why am I going to give my opponent's card draw for a potentially big dumb flample creature? And yes, true, that is what blood tokens do. Blood, for those unfamiliar, as it's an artifact with 1 tap, discard a card, and sacrifice the artifact to draw a card. But it's that part about the blood that I feel like is going to make this very, very strong. Your opponents, because they only get the blood when they're casting spells. And what happens when you start casting spells? Unless those spells all the time are just card draw pieces, eventually they're gonna run out of cards in hand. Right? If they're casting a spell, that removes the spell from their hand. So at some point, they literally can't even pay the cost reasonably for these blood tokens.
Yeah.
So you're punishing them for casting lots and lots of spells because you are throwing this big boy at them as well. Like, is this the strongest creature ever known to man? No, but it is only a 4-drop to get this 5/6, so he defends like an absolute champ until he's ready to start going to combat. And then when he does get to go to combat, he gets additional 1/0 for every single blood that they have.
Yeah, this is awesome. I like this a ton. Yeah. I mean, even just on its own, that stat line is nuts. 4 mana for a 5/6 with Flample? That is bananas.
If you have anything on your board that cares about the amount of artifacts that are created, like if your opponent were to create an artifact, or I'm thinking like one in specific as well, you punish them even more for even attempting to get rid of the artifacts, something like Disciple of the Vault.
You play this in the Mayor, don't you?
I used to play this in the Mayor. No, not anymore, I'm afraid. Not in Campbell, no, only because like Campbell's cloning ability, creating just a blood. Yeah, it happens once per turn, and creating just a blood ended up being less useful than I was hoping it would be, but it is still very, very cool. Like, if you've got anything that cares about the amount of permanents or artifacts that your opponents play or stuff like that, there's tons of, I know we're kind of dipping into a different color at this point, but there's like red cards that care about the amount of artifacts that your opponents have, or other cards that just like say when the things are sacrificed, right? Mayhem Devil, right? If they go to eat if they go to eat these bloods at all to not take combat damage, bang, bang, bang. So there is use to giving your opponents artifact tokens, and
definitely
outside of nothing else, this thing gets stupid big, and it's a vampire as well, by the way. So are you playing vampire stuff? Here you go. Here's probably the biggest, dumbest vampire that you could play in that deck.
Yeah. I like it, man. This is a cool pick. Thanks for showing me that. I'm grateful to have been a part of hearing about that one for the first time. I'm like brewing with it now. I feel
I'm telling
alive.
you, there's some
the blood
spice
vial
to be
is
had in there.
coursing through my veins.
But
man.
I hear you saying to yourself out there, but John, you're absolutely dead wrong on this crap of a card. Why don't you go ahead and tell me about it down in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to tell you about my hear me out notions on this card here.
Yes, I love John's hear me outs. Yeah, you can let us know what you thought about the episode and about Blood Vial Conqueror or Blood Vial
Purveyor.
Purveyor. There's vampires have too many titles, man. We gotta. Back in my day, it was barons, and that was it. Yeah, let us know down in the comments what you thought about this episode, what we should be looking for going forward. Obviously, the next one's going to be red. So you'd be looking out for the red episode of the underrated cards you missed from the Thoughtcast. Let us know down below. You can also reach out to us on Blue Sky. That's our social media of choice. You can see the official Blue Sky is MTG Thoughtcast, and then each of us are Joseph Thoughtcast, John Thoughtcast, or you can email us at mtgthoughtcast@gmail.com. Obviously, closest way and the easiest way to get in touch with us is on our Discord, linked down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you had some black insight for your decks from this episode, and we will see you next time on the MTG Thoughtcast.
Greatness at any cost.